Well, it's called the battery room because this room was full of lead acid cells, a big battery of cells. The lead acid batteries were charged up at night time when the steam engines were driving the dynamos to run the street lights. During the day, when there was no need to run the steam engines, to supply a few shops and houses, it was supplied from the battery of cells that were in this room.
This room itself is one of my favourite rooms because of the stories that other people are able to tell me about a lot of these artefacts and the role they've had in their lives as they've been growing up, which I think is brilliant. One of the items in here, which I think is absolutely incredible, is this Kelvinator fridge. So it was made in 1939 in the UK, and it was owned by a Tamworth family from 1940 through to 2014. And something that's absolutely incredible about it, it's still fully working and we're in 2019. So one of the favourite stories I like to tell when giving my tours is in regards to this Maytag washing machine. So this one was donated to the museum in 1988. However, it has been owned and used in Tamworth since 1929. Not only was it owned and used, it was used at a boarding house. So imagine the amount of washing you're doing in one day, and you've got something this big doing it.
We are rather proud and very pleased to have that Maytag. That, as far as we can tell, is the first washing machine ever to come to Tamworth. A lady owned a boarding house just up above the railway on Carthy Street. She had a lot of washing to do, and she paid £60. She actually bought that from an agent in Moree. She paid £60 for that washing machine back in 1929. Now, I'm not an economist, but I reckon that would have been 2 or 3 years' wages. But she got good value for it because that washing machine was still working when it was donated to the museum 59 years later.
So one of our other favourite items that I like to talk about when we're on a tour is just these jugs. Main reason because unbeknown to me until I actually started volunteering here, they're only made in Australia and New Zealand. So if you see any of these items anywhere else, they've travelled a very long way.
Australia and New Zealand used electric jugs, porcelain, ceramic electric jugs. And again, a little bit of research showed that we were the only 2 countries in the world stupid enough to have an electric jug where the water is actually electrified. That's sort of the evolution of appliances. First of all, the heating elements, then the simple motor-driven ones, then the complex motor-driven ones. Very little before the First World War. It expanded fairly significantly between the 2 wars and really took off after the Second World War. One of the things that delighted me when we were collecting stuff for the museum is how nice and aesthetically pleasing and how well made a lot of this old stuff is. Every manufacturer dressed their appliance up and made their appliance aesthetically more pleasing. Hopefully it worked better, but not always, but mainly aesthetically more pleasing. And there's evidence of it all the way through this room. In particular, an electric radiator is a red hot piece of wire. Who wants to sit in front of a red hot piece of wire? But that's what you're doing when you sat in front of a radiator. But as you can see, they put them in lovely little enamel frames. They put them in brass and copper figured things. They eventually got round to making the space age virtually.